And what do you think are your transferable skills from PhD?
Again, communication, even things like presenting your, I don't know, weekly lab, what you've done in the lab. I remember one of the labs I've been in, we had to present what we've done over the week and over the month. I need to be able to communicate something like that to very, different audiences, whether it be our investors who have invested X dollars with us and they just want an update on a particular portfolio company. I need to be able to translate that into layman's terms. They don't necessarily have an academic or a highly technical background, or I might need to pitch the same company to our investment committee.
Kia ora everyone, and welcome to LabMates Beyond the Bench, a podcast sharing the stories of how scientists and their research move beyond the lab bench and into the real world. And today I'm joined by Dr. Sheryl Tan. So thank you for being here, Sheryl. Can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about where you currently?
Cool. Thanks for having me. I'm Sheryl. I am a former neuroscientist / recovering academic. I now work in the venture capital space. So I work for a deep tech investment firm called Pacific Channel. And there I am a senior investment associate. That's my official job title.
Beginning. So you're a recovering academic in neuroscience.
Yeah.
That tells me a little bit about your journey, but what got you into science in the first place? What was your, gateway drug, neuroscience? How did you decide what to do after you left?
I was actually a real nerd at school. I think it wasn't until I was year 11 or something that I changed school and I had just hit another gear. And for me, the school I was at had lots of, scientific resources. They had fully kitted out labs. Awesome teachers. I still keep in touch with a couple of them to this day, and I still tell them, if it weren't for you, I wouldn't have embarked on the journey that I am now. Now, I didn't have a job in finance on that bingo card, but it's kind of set me up for what I ended up studying at university and everything. So it was kind of that I knew that I wanted to study science at university. I was sort of on the fence about medicine. I did all the pre-med courses, but my heart wasn't into it, and I didn't even apply for it in the end. But I did all the, I did biomedical science. Again, there was a pivotal moment in that third year. I got to choose more neuroscience papers, and then all of a sudden, I was still, it's not like I was slacking off or anything, but those grades just suddenly became a lot easier to get.
Yeah.
So everything just fell into place. Applied for the honours program at Auckland Uni. The biomed program is competitive. You have to have a certain GPA. Got into that. Was only just gonna I was only just gonna stay for a year and do a project out there. I happened to be sitting outside. My desk was right outside Professor Morris Curtis's office, and when, he used to work quite late back in the day, and he was like, oh, what are your plans for next year? I'm just like, honestly, I'm thinking of a PhD, but the one that's been offered by my current supervisor isn't so hot. And he was like, well, I'm looking for students. Would you like to, would you consider, doing one under me? And I was like, yeah, sure, why not? Got an Auckland Medical Research Foundation scholarship, and 4 years later, I submitted my doctorate. But it was actually really cool. I got to collaborate with a group. So my PhD was in olfaction and the loss of smell in Parkinson's disease. And as a result, I got to collaborate with a research group that was based at the Max Planck Institute for Brain Research over in Germany. So I actually got to spend a few weeks up to a couple of months each year of my PhD in Germany. And I think it was the second to last year. So at the end of my second year, they were like, what are your plans after graduation? And I'm like, honestly, not sure. And they were like, would you like to come work for us? And I was like, okay, no, someone at the Max Planck just offered me a postdoc. Of course.
You don't say no.
Yeah, you don't. And looking at all the other the PhD students ahead of me and how they were struggling for grants, or, they weren't, there was a lot of uncertainty. I was like, yeah, absolutely. And so I felt it was kind of nice having a job lined up before. No, that's not normal at all.
But again, not normal.
That was just by virtue of being in the right lab at the right time. It was, none of this was sort of planned. Even the fact that I had studied German as a bit of a bum subject, I took all the sciences, and German for me, which is weird, I know German's a hard language to learn, but for me, it was like a bit of an escape from like the physics, the chemistry, and the math, maths and everything else. So, I was like, well, I've already got a certain level of competency. So actually moving to Germany was actually a lot easier than it would have been for some people without that background. So it was almost kind of meant, I just still look back and I'm just like, shit, like everything just sort of like fell into place without me actively looking for that. But, as much as I loved living in Germany, that was probably a real sort of, I had a bit of a watershed moment. Up until that point, I hadn't actually really failed at much. I loved living in Germany. I hated the job. I hated it so much. I was on a project that, it didn't align with my values. Didn't align with my values. I didn't enjoy it. It was boring. I spent more time at the gym learning German, making friends with my, I had honestly, I had an awesome unit. Support unit, but I was miserable in the lab, and I actually decided to call it quits. I actually pulled the pin on my contract. I said, this isn't working out for me. I'm not enjoying this. I need to come home. And that really sucked because I felt like I'd failed.
Yeah. Like you'd chosen that.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that life kind of chose you. You didn't necessarily apply you were obviously very talented and pulled into that lab, but at the same time, maybe it wasn't something you chose or actively chose. It kind of chose you.
Yeah.
And I can imagine that turning around and coming back home would feel like a
tail between my legs, $200 to my name or something kind of crazy like that. And I was like, well, I've got to restart again. And I didn't, but at the same time, I also felt like my time in the lab, like I still hadn't finished, I still felt like I had unfinished business in the lab. Yeah. But because that had completely rocked my confidence, I was just like, I'm not sure that I want to be a postdoc, but I'm still very good with my hands, pottering about in the lab.
Technical.
Yeah, so I took a job as a technician. Yes, it was a pay cut, but at the same time, being a technician is great because for the most part, you can just leave it at the door. Like, at 5 o'clock, you can just go and like forget about it. So it gave me a chance to like sort of like get some more money in the bank and just sort of like rebuild my confidence. And I think maybe it was about 18 months into that gig, I was like, actually, this is really boring. I think I want to be a postdoc. So I ended up joining a lab that was working in spinal cord research. And so I applied for a postdoctoral fellowship with the Catwalk Spinal Cord Injury Trust, and they gave me a fellowship. So I was like, right, we're back on the postdoc train, I guess. So that was end of 2020. At the same time, I was approached by Sarah Jane Guild and Professor Simon Malpass from what is now Katia Health.
Oh yeah.
It was called the implantable. I think it is still called the Implantable Devices Group, like as a research
group,
ABI. And they said, we're working on this hydrocephalus project. They outlined the whole thing. The reason why increase intracranial pressure for children and adults who have hydrocephalus is generally a bad thing. We're developing this device. We're at the point we've got this device. We're about to implant it into sheep as an animal model. We want to see if it's safe. We've heard that you're really good with histology. Would you like to do a bit of work for us? Just like, yeah, this sounds interesting. So again, it was just sort of like saying yes to, because by that point I was already behind on publication count, and I probably still am. Like, I don't care anymore, but whatever.
No, I think it's fun when you get to let that go.
So I was like, well, I need a way to like increase. I thought like if I just get on as many projects as I can, leveraging the skills that I have, maybe this might help. So yeah, that was quite an interesting sort of like, that was basically my foray into the startup space. So we did the first pilot study. We got some money, grant funding to do that. And then after that, they were talking about forming the company. And at that point, I still wasn't sure, we're talking like 2021, 2022. I still very much enjoyed being in the lab, and I still had, bits to work on. And yeah, I think it was but at the same time, I was still doing work for them on the side. So that was, in a way, that was also helping sort of extend extend my research contract.
Yeah.
So getting experience, that was probably my first sort of taste of the startup space. So I was kind of like juggling 2 projects at a time, which is a terrible idea, but I'm glad I stuck with it because it's sort of like landed where it's got me to where I am now.
Yeah.
So obviously, contract's about to end. The extensions after the pandemic has started to dry up. And I think it was sort of like exactly almost 2 years ago to the date now.
Mm-hmm.
I had lunch with Simon and I was just like, I'm going to tell, after this lunch, I'm going to tell Morris, and I'm going to tell the other guys in the spinal cord, research space, I'm not applying for any more grants. I'm done. And I, quite frankly, if I get to April 2024 and I don't have a job, like I'm quite happy to walk away from this and find something that I actually want to do. And he was like, well, what do you want to do? And I was like, well, the venture capital firm that gave you seed investment, like, do you reckon you could make an intro? And he was like, yeah, sure. Like, no problem.
Really?
And it just so happened that their associate had left and they were about to advertise for a new associate. So again, like literally the next day I was on a call with the chief investment officer and one of the managing partners. They just wanted to sort of scope me out. And I honestly said to them, look, guys, I don't actually know what venture capital is. All I know is that you gave money to Simon. That's kind of started it. And it turned out, Kieran, with the managing partner at the time, we had actually gone through uni together and he was like, I kind of recognize you. And so like, it's quite interesting to see like how my path went out that way. And he went down like, I guess, a more commercial route. And the chief investment officer, as it turns out, he's got a PhD in biochemistry. He spent, almost 20 years as a postdoc over in the States on a tenure track position. Like he gets the academic space really well, but he also worked in the IP and patent space. So again, that was, and then he ended up working for a tech transfer office. So, and then, before moving back to New Zealand. So they kind of got me, like they knew the path they knew my situation and they also knew that I was sort of itching to try and, find something else or, try to find something else to do. So yeah, they invited me to apply for it. Went through, I think, was it 3 or 4 rounds of interviews.
Wow.
And I do remember Simon saying, like, if you get this job, Sheryl, it means that they really, 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 really want you. And I was like, okay, cool. Like fully not expecting to get the job. I remember making a bet with my partner at the time. I was just like, there's no way in hell. Like I've got zero like business acumen. I can't do a market sizing estimate. Like my bullshit meter's not good enough. Yeah. So I made a bet with him. I was just like, bet you like $200 that I'm not going to get this job. And at the end of the last interview, like I'd sent him a text. I was like, I owe you $200 now. So I was like, kind of like a good bet to lose, you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, by that point I had a couple months of annual leave to cash in. So I did that at the end of 2023 and started up in January 2024 and here we are.
Amazing. What a journey you must have been on to learn what you know now versus what you knew at the beginning of that contract.
Oh my God, I have learned so much. So much. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh God, I can only imagine. I mean, my experience was a lot more slow than that. I went from postdoc into a scientist role in the tech transfer office. And then even now I still sit partially academic and partially like commercialization. So, and I feel like I've learned a lot in the last sort of 3 years, but I can't imagine what you would have learned in a VC capacity. So, wow.
It's fast.
So what was your first few months like? What were you like, oh my gosh,
like learning all the jargon, like things that now are very like second nature to me, like the different instruments of investment, like con note and the different flavors, there's also like safe or safes, equity, sometimes there's just all the different instruments and also instruments that we don't use, but I also need to be aware of in case I see it on within another company, like also, interacting with the other shops in town, the other VC firms, getting to know, getting a taste of what they might co-invest in with us, or what they will and won't invest in, who I need to be friends with, all that kind of thing. Or not who I need to be friends with, but rather who I need, the contacts I need to be, keep in touch with, say on a quarterly or a monthly basis, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I
So
think
again, it's just like sort of finding, like, I feel like if you told me who I needed to do all of that for, like in the academic space up at the Grafton campus, no problem. I can still tell you all those names, but it's almost like having to start and I guess set up your network all over again. That was a lot to digest certainly in the first quarter, for sure.
Yeah, and I can imagine you probably were surprised at how many relationships you needed to kind of build, because I always thought, as my academic brain, always thought that VC investment would be like someone just gives you a bunch of money for your company to do stuff, but not the relationship that goes with that, and also all the co-investment. It's not just usually one VC or one company.
No, it's
transactional.
Exactly.
It's a community, right? Like it's yeah.
And agreeing on what, collectively, getting agreement across, say, 3, 4, 5, even more than that, parties agreeing on a pathway to help a company grow. That takes a lot of effort and a lot of negotiation, and also, like, you really need clear lines of communication. Like, I cannot emphasize like how important communication is in this game.
Do you think that that's quite different to how you collaborated maybe as an academic versus the kind of clear lines of communication now?
I think there are things in common, for sure. I mean, like, if you don't communicate well, people are never going to understand where you're coming from and what you're about to do. But I think, I think there are some common themes, and I think, communicating well, and also, treating people well, and also having that empathy is really, really important. And maybe that's not something that's so, I guess, prominent, like the social capital side of things is probably not so prominent in academia, but I think being aware of it and being able to transfer it over, it's almost like now that I'm a VC, like I've had to, like, I do that, but it's like on steroids.
Yeah, like in a quite a different way. Exactly. And what do you think are your transferable skills from PhD? Because obviously PhD/postdoc, right? You've obviously done so many great things in the lab from a technical perspective, but if anyone was going to follow in your footsteps and say, I like the look of that role, how do I take what I know from my PhD? What do you think would be some of those top skills that you use every day that would be like a key part of their repertoire that they would need to bring forward?
Communication, even things like presenting, presenting your, I don't know, weekly lab, what you've done in the lab. I remember one of the labs I've been in, we had to like present what we've done over the week and over the month. I need to be able to communicate something like that to very, different audiences, whether it be our investors who have, invested X dollars with us and they just want an update on a particular portfolio company. I need to be able to, translate that into layman's terms. They don't necessarily have an academic, or, highly technical background. Or I might need to pitch the same company to our investment committee. So they might be starting to ask really pointy questions around IP or the technology or maybe the commercial risk. So being able to communicate to different audiences. I don't know if everyone in academia gets the opportunity to do this, but being at the Center for Brain Research, we often went out to talk to community groups about the brain. Like I've been to the Gisborne A&P show to talk to, farmers about the brain. I've been to schools to talk to kids about the brain. So being able to relate and communicate like very complex ideas to very different audiences with varying levels of, I guess, of background knowledge is really important. And I guess, I think I often draw back to, my time as being a technician, having the lab running and humming along really nicely. There are, you do need to be quite process oriented, very organized, very meticulous in your record keeping, almost as if, you were going to be subject to an MPI audit the next day kind of thing.
Yeah.
Having those like being quite organized, process oriented, or, that translates beautifully to like fund operations, which I've been doing a lot of this year to basically learn how a VC fund operates. So you've got many different arms, your capital raising, you've got the diligence for deals, all the documentation for investment. Like I feel like I've managed to take a lot of those traits that I've had, or those skills I've learned from being a technician, and that's translated over to fund operations quite nicely. Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that a lot of crossover there. So yeah, communication and organization. I
Yeah.
get it. Do you ever miss the science, or do you get to go like nitty gritty and ask fun questions about the science still?
I still get to do that. And again, related to skills that I translate over, I think, skills that translate over to this job, being able to look at your data objectively, or being able to, doing diligence, especially technical diligence, given that a lot of what we invest in, is deep tech, and it's usually research that's been spun out of a university. It's almost like peer reviewing a grant application or a paper. Like, you look at some graphs and you're like, no, there's no way there's no way that's true. Or and you sort of ask them, like, how does that make sense? So I guess also having that objectivity that you've had from being a scientist, and crudely, I guess you could call it having a bullshit meter, and then applying that to deals. That's something that transfers over. So in that sense, I do get to use my science every day. By virtue of my background being neuroscience, I've gravitated to a lot of the healthcare deals. Kieran's managing partner, he also looks after the healthcare deals alongside me. Same with Roland Toda, general partner. He also he has an oversight, and I guess Rob to an extent, with his biochemistry background. So I guess within our team, we have a strong, we get medical devices, we get the healthcare space, or the health tech space. Yeah. We've got, those are our three themes. I get pulled in onto the food and the food and environment as needed. I don't know, it doesn't quite sort of get me out of bed like it does with the med tech. So we play to our strengths.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I guess it could be fun diving into some of those, but I guess if you're more out of your depth, then it's not as your favorite thing, Yeah. But it is what it is.
Yeah, I've gotten to learn the broad strokes of what we would like to see as a good investment in food, and also, in ag tech, and also environment. But for me to really dive in and get excited, it's got to be the med. For me, it's just the med devices. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's nice that you can always play to your strengths, and if you've got a team, then you don't have to get too involved in certain pieces if you don't need to.
Yeah.
That's really awesome. Was there anything during your PhD that you didn't learn for your current role that you're now, or you had to get up to speed really quickly?
I mean, I don't think it's skills that I don't know. Broadly, we probably don't get, if it weren't for me going to talk to various community groups about the brain, or having the opportunity to teach undergraduate laboratories, I don't think I would have had that. It's a skill that actually comes handy when I deal with investors, and on the investor relations side, basically giving our investors a good customer experience, and being able to talk to them, being able to talk about deals or anything at whatever level they need to be, we need to have that conversation at, whether it's super technical or they want me to break it down into layman's terms. I don't know if I didn't have those opportunities to be able to engage with different groups throughout my academic career, I don't know if I would have been as, that would have been a skill that would have been a very sharp learning curve to take on. So that's probably, and I think it's still, and I also had a retail job all throughout uni. So again, just being that customer facing thing, that's been very helpful for this. I don't know if but I had to actively, seek out those opportunities during my PhD. Yeah. It would have been very easy for me to have been siloed, in the lab, or in, in front of my computer screen, and not being able to develop, I guess, those soft skills.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think there is an element of storytelling that we develop in our PhDs, particularly with the outreach piece, and demonstrating and relating to peers of different backgrounds, that you're right, that would be like, would you get that same kind of experience if you had done a different kind of degree in a
Correct.
different kind of office job and then went into VC? Probably not.
Yeah,
So
100%. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's
So
a
if
really
there's
good
one
point.
thing I can encourage, like, if you're in your postgraduate work, postgraduate studies, really leverage those opportunities to sort of flex or develop those soft skills.
I was going to ask you about that, about like what are the things that you wish you had or that you would encourage more that PhD students now looking out
Yeah.
to get involved in. And it's funny
Yeah.
because I do this with some of the students that I see, and it's always the networking and it's,
Yeah.
the opportunities to get out and talk to other people and getting out of your bubble. And it's the thing that, like, I'm really guilty of this, but I was like, I'll deal with it later. Like, I'll think about my career when I finish.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what I want to do, but yeah, that's a future problem. And I think the feedback that I've had from the different conversations that we've had with this podcast is just do it now. Build the relationships. It's all about your networks.
Yeah.
And it's all about the more soft skills, particularly if you're looking beyond academia, right? So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And if you can volunteer, even if it's got nothing to do with like science or your PhD or whatever, like I volunteer for my alma mater, my high school. I also, I sit on their alumni committee. That's also a great source of, that's also a great networking source. I am still involved with Weightlifting New Zealand. So I used to compete. I don't have the time and I like food too much to cut weight anymore. So,
Fair.
I'm just being honest.
Yeah, no, I like it.
And so now I get to help select the teams that go to the Olympics and the Commonwealth Games and World Champs and that kind of thing. So it's, it's a sport that, I'll use weightlifting as an example. It's a sport that gave a lot to me. And I think it's always important to give back to the communities that have given a lot to you. So, and in doing so, that's a chance for you to develop networks and also develop soft skills that you may not get in your day-to-day job. And so when I was a doctoral student and a postdoc, I was not able to get a lot of those soft skills apart from talking to the odd community group here and there. So it was just, yes, it was time out of my weekend. Yes, it was time out of office hours. But, I don't regret it because it helped build up, a repertoire other than just being able to pipette stuff at a bench.
Yeah. I think it's always good to zoom out and remind yourself that there's so much more than the pipette at the bench.
Absolutely.
And the pipette at the bench does get boring, and it's not, if you think about like even an academic career, how well you pipette at the bench isn't actually the success metric that you're measured against when you move across academia. So
no,
yeah, I would always think about that level of perspective because there's only so much pipetting at the bench that you really need to do.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Cool. Last question. Do you still consider yourself a scientist?
No, I say that I'm a neuroscientist. I was a neuroscientist by training, but I will tell people that I'm a venture capitalist now, and that I've studied neuroscience. I'm happy to talk about, how it's a weird, like, I get it. Like, I didn't study business or whatever. And it was a very, I guess, stark jump. But I don't consider myself an active scientist. But if you want me to read a paper or whatever, I can still do that. That's for sure.
Yeah. But you're not like holding that title, like, I'm a scientist. I did my PhD. It's not the thing that defines you.
No, and I think that's actually really helpful. Like, it's been useful. I do wonder if you tie yourself too much to a particular identity, it's too easy to become trapped. And then once you start feeling stuck, then it's hard to move on from that. So I've been able to shed, I'm very happy to shed the scientist label, and I'm very happy to shed, I don't have to wear a lab, I don't have to wear a lab coat. I don't have to wear safety glasses, freaking hazmat suit to work. I can wear whatever shoes I want. I can get my nails done and they're not going to chip because I'm not washing my hands 10 times a day. Like, I like this. I like this corporate gig right now.
Yeah. No, I think that's really helpful for people to consider that
Yeah.
their identity is not wrapped up in the degree that they've done. And I think like
Yeah.
quite guilty of that. And I think it's easy to get very tunnel visioned. So
Yeah.
it's a very good reminder.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And I think when you're transitioning, I see this, you know, I've, you know, seen various, you know, I've seen this on, you know, LinkedIn posts and whatever, you know, even like, you know, high performing athletes who have, you know, come to the end of their career, they often have this like, you know, identity crisis maybe.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you've been training all your life to hit this pinnacle moment, and then what?
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it's not unique to scientists. Like, I think, you know, if you've been doing something for a very long time and also performing to a very high standard, the minute you are, you know, faced with a change, be it forced or you intended it, there's always going to be a bit of tension as you sort of like figure it out. So it's not uncommon, but I guess I've never been too tied to it. And I guess subconsciously, if someone ever asked me, oh, you're going to, you know, apply for a promotion to become a lecturer or senior lecturer or climb up the ranks, I think I've probably only ever given it lip service, but never actually like, you know, gave it more serious thoughts. Yeah, it was quite easy for me to sort of shed that identity.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I've seen that with like even startup founders getting too tied to their baby, like their idea, their business, and then when they exit, what that looks like for them.
Yeah.
So yeah, athletes, startup founders, and scientists apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Cool. Oh, I did have one other thing.
Yeah.
Is there a myth that people believe? We kind of covered this maybe. Believe about leaving academia that you'd like to change?
It's not that hard. Like, seriously? You know, I've had so many people ask me, how did you leave? And I was like, I didn't have a plan. Finding this job was really, you know, a series of events that just happened to fall into place at the right time. But, you know, once I had made a conscious decision, I know I'm not going to get this fellowship, and I'm done. Like, you know, it's not that hard. You just have to draw that line in the sand for yourself, and then sets a timeline of what you think you need to do. It's not hard. Yeah. That's the one myth I'd like to bust.
It's not that hard. You just have to start.
You just actually have to wake up one morning and go, I'm done. That's it. Like, yeah.
Yeah, such a good point. And I think like maybe the progression that you made was also saying yes to other opportunities like the networking and that whole collaboration with Katea Health as well, you know, like or early Katea.
Just say like
kind of led you to on that journey, right? So it was the earlier you that said yes to other things that opened the door for future you to say I'm done.
Yeah, absolutely. And so should I have said yes at the time, like in terms of like my capacity? Probably not. Like I had a lot of other work going on, but like, I don't know, there's also that, like, trust your gut. Like there are, you know, that was one of the times when my gut was just like, I think these guys are onto something, like, and I want to be on that journey.
Yeah.
And totally. Again, thinking back to when I was on the plane to start my postdoc, I haven't told many people about this. So like, I guess this is going out for the world. But, you know,
here it is.
In the days leading up, I just had this gut feeling that something was not, I couldn't articulate it, but I told a couple people at work, they're like, dude, you've got a postdoc to the Max Planck, just get on the plane and go. But the minute the plane took off, like I just knew I just knew this wasn't it. And I actually cried the entire way, like 28 hours. I was just like, I think I've made the biggest mistake of my life. But then, you know, I was there and I just had to make the best of it. And sure enough, like there were just a series of events and, you know, that just was just like, man, like I really, you know, but at the same time I got to live in Germany for a year. So
yeah, it wasn't all.
It's what I wanted. But, you know, listen to that gut. I don't think people sort of give it enough, I guess, credit or kudos.
Yeah.
But my gut feel is also that's also that forms part of my diligence process for deals. Like if something just doesn't quite pass the vibe check and, you know, obviously I'll find, you know, facts and things to substantiate it, but your gut
it gives you that inkling.
Is a powerful thing.
Yeah, I think that's such a good point. I think I've been guilty of listening to but you've got the PhD,
Yeah.
you're going to do the postdoc, and,
Yeah.
you know, you've got the postdoc, so what's next? And
Mm-hmm.
assuming that you're following a predicted path and falling in line with the predicted path because it sounds prestigious and your parents are happy with you, or whoever it is, your advisor.
Yeah.
But actually, if it's just not for you, you're the one that knows that, and that's your gut feeling. So,
yeah. And also, like, from the time you study undergraduate through to I've said this many times to, people have asked me, from the time you study, start your undergrad through to when you finish your PhD, you're talking, 7 or 8 years? Like, that's like a good chunk of your 20s. And so my question is, did you really spend all that time, like the better part of a decade at university, just to spend the rest of your career at a university? Like, that might be for some people, don't get me wrong. Like, there will be some people who be like, yep, that's right up my alley.
Yeah,
but
clearly
for me,
there'll be some
it's
people.
a hard no. Like, yeah.
Yeah, and you're like not the same person during that time as you were when you started, right? Like, you might not be into the same things, or you might learn a lot about yourself on that journey, and that's okay too. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, yeah, listen to your gut, and just, if it's not for you, you just have to wake up one morning and go, I'm done. I want to look for something else. And talk to people. Talk to, if you want to hit me up on LinkedIn, like, I'm happy if you're in Auckland, I'm happy to go for a coffee with you guys. Like, just talk to people in places that you think you might like to work in. Because that's basically how I got this job.
Yeah, scope it out, talk to other people. Particularly, there are enough people that have left PhDs before that you can find on LinkedIn, and you're a great example of that. That would be my top tip as well, would just be, and everyone seems to be quite open to having a discussion with, particularly if it was that path of a PhD to something else. Like, I don't know anyone who's left their PhD that would say no to another PhD who's considering leaving or following their track. So
yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. This has been amazing. I loved hearing your journey and a little bit more about VC. And the more I learn, the more I realize there's still a lot of business and business words that I don't know yet, but I'm working on it. In this episode of LabMates Beyond the Bench, Dr. Sheryl Tan shares her journey from neuroscience to venture capital, highlighting the unexpected turns and valuable lessons learned along the way. Key takeaways: embrace change, being open to new opportunities and adapting to change. Transferable skills, communication, and organization are crucial skills that can be applied across various fields, including venture capital. LabMates is a vibrant community where scientists from diverse fields come together to share insights, collaborate on groundbreaking research, and support each other's professional journeys. Join LabMates today and become part of a thriving network of, and take your research beyond the bench.